We have the story from the Daily Mail. CNN host calls timing of Biden's cancer diagnosis extraordinary and suggests the real motive. We have this from the New York Post. Doctor who worked with Biden says he had cancer while he was president. In fact, he even said he likely had it. Take a look at this. He had it while he was president. He probably had it at the start of his presidency in 2021. Yes, I don't think there's any disagreement about that. It appears, my friends, that this is bipartisan. Everybody recognizes that Biden's cancer diagnosis, they've known about for some time. In fact, when I looked up just a cursory search, this disease apparently takes years to metastasize to the bone, to the point where Joe Biden is at would imply while he was president, he did in fact have cancer, calling into question his mental state, what medications he may have been on, whether he was capable of doing the job in the first place, and questions why didn't they invoke the 25th Amendment? I want to bring you back in time to when Nancy Pelosi announced the 25th Amendment panel. Remember this? And everybody said, wait, this isn't for Trump. This is for Joe Biden. That's right. Around the time that Joe Biden was about to enter office, Nancy Pelosi put together through Congress this 25th Amendment panel that could make the decision whether or not to remove a president if they were infirm. Many people first claimed they're trying to find ways to remove Trump, but then quickly people said, no, it's for Joe Biden. It's for Joe Biden. This suggests before he even got into office, they knew that he was sick and would need to find a way to invoke the removal of a president if they lost Congress. The idea being, if the Democrats control Congress, they can create a committee that will have the ability to invoke the 25th Amendment to remove the president. But if they lose, if they did not do that, it would be incumbent upon the vice president solely and a Republican Congress. So they made this new plan. A committee, a panel, learned experts would make that decision if the vice president saw fit to invoke it, a power they were giving to Kamala Harris to be able to remove Biden when the time came. I believe they knew the whole time that Joe Biden was dying, and I believe that they don't have anybody else. Joe Biden was the best that they could muster up. They knew that Buttigieg didn't have it. They knew that Newsom, nobody else had it. So this is where we are. Allow me to figure out if I can, let's see. We're having fun with these technical difficulties these days, my friends. Not much can be done about it, but I think, there we go. We're going to be joined by Dr. Stephen Quay right now. Let me see if we are able to connect. And no, it looks like we have Dr. Drew. Let me grab, we'll get this going for you guys in just a second. And let's see. Hello, doctor. Can you hear me?
Tim, is that you?
Yes, it is. Can you see me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, hey, how's it going?
Excellent.
I thought we were going to have a different doctor, but I'm glad to see you. It's been a minute. Thanks for joining me.
It has been a minute. I got to come back out to West Virginia sometime.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about this. I did a cursory Google search on Joe Biden's cancer diagnosis, and a cursory Google search reveals there's no way they just found out about this, especially considering he was the president getting these routine exams. So
that's exactly right.
Yeah,
lay
it out for us.
So again, people are like, how dare you opine on a case you don't take care of? I'm not saying anything about his case or his care. The American people have a right to understand what is being reported. And what is being reported is not the full story. The fact is, if he was diagnosed with advanced metastatic disease at presentation, extremely unlikely. That happens maybe 2% of the time in people who are not being monitored carefully. With his level of scrutiny, there's no way that happened. And then what got my spidey sense up initially, they went, oh, we felt a nodule. There was a prostate nodule. That's not how it works. The nodule, most doctors don't even do digital rectal exams anymore. We just follow the PSA. PSA is up. We get an ultrasound or an MRI, we biopsy, and that's that. Now, the overwhelming probability is somewhere 2 to 4 years ago, he had a diagnosis. It was treated. It got away from them. Now he has metastatic disease. The really interesting aspect of this, though, is that when somebody has metastatic prostate cancer, we use androgen deprivation therapies to manage it. And one of the common side effects is falling, muscle atrophy, and cognitive decline.
Wow.
In fact, I have prostate cancer. And when I was first, I had a little recurrence, I had to have some radiation. And at that point I talked to my urologist. I said, the one thing I don't want is androgen deprivation because I don't want what it would do to my brain. I don't want it. I'll take my chances with something else. But that would be the routine treatment for the first line on metastatic disease.
Are you okay now? I mean, I didn't realize that you had cancer.
I had prostate cancer. I had a prostatectomy. Then I had some radiation. And this is all, it's a slow growing tumor. If you get it early, you're good. If you want to get a cancer, this is the one to get. Trust me. I'm with the Prostate Cancer Foundation now. I'm fine. Could it recur? Yeah, it could, but we're monitoring, we're taking care of it. That's that. Why his got away? He had a very high grade tumor. I have a low to intermediate grade tumor. I don't know if the grade was up at presentation, if they put him under some sort of active surveillance or not. But if you put it together, this business of seeing a nodule and fighting metastatic disease, that's not what happened. The fact that they decided to come clean about it now, very suspicious. And the overwhelming probability is, don't know him, I wish him the best, but the probability he was diagnosed 2 or 3 years ago, they've been treating him, it got away. He may have been on some androgen deprivation therapy, and that would explain a lot.
How do you deliver androgen deprivation therapy?
Well, it's like by essentially shutting down the testes, things like Lupron, things like that. There are ways. They used to. It's actually called. We used to call it. They actually would castrate men. They'd actually take their testes out back in the day, and it does slow the tumor down quite a bit. But this is once it gets to metastatic disease, particularly high grade like this, that is not a curable condition. That is a progressive, fatal illness.
So this is a terminal diagnosis?
For sure. Wow. But what's so deeply troubling about this is all the gaslighting around it. Just come clean about it. When was it diagnosed? What happened? It's just, I'm so sick and tired of the incomplete truths and the gaslighting. And look, he's an individual entitled to his medical care in private, but he's the president of the United States and they've chosen to come clean about it. At least be honest about that. At least give us the facts.
I think the challenge is, let me start. Let me before we get into overt politics, let me say this. I don't believe the grade. They were saying that it was I'm forgetting the term because I'm not a doctor, but it was like a 9. A 9.
A 9.
Yeah. What was the word? The G. It's a touch of the G.
Gleason score.
Yes. There you go. You're the doctor. Yeah. It was a 9, and so I just did some Googling, and they say 8, 9, and 10 are very high. They're considered aggressive. I don't believe it. I don't believe them.
It fits, listen, I'm trying to use divining rods here to get, this trickle of information and try to figure out what they're actually describing. But grade 9 does fit. It doesn't mean he was grade 9 at presentation. He might have been a 6, may have progressed. I don't know. But
now it's a 9.
9 fits with the metastatic disease and the fact that it does seem to be aggressive.
So, because I was reading, and correct me if I'm wrong, that a lower grade could take 10 years to get to this level.
Correct. I'm a grade 6 or never progresses. Right. So there's a lot of missing pieces on the story that look, it brings up the whole issue again. Shouldn't the public, the American people have some access to the understanding of what the medical and cognitive state of their president is? Doesn't it make some, if I were, as airline pilots and physicians and lawyers, we are held to account if we start having cognitive decline or we become impaired medically, we are required to step out or at least raise our hand and sort of ask for a separate evaluation to see if we are appropriate to be taking care of people. This is such a much more important condition. We are living longer. We are going to have older presidents. We need to come up with some sort of mechanism to screen for trouble when it develops.
So with the medication he would have received for this, so let's say what you think, like 2-3 years ago, maybe that he got the diagnosis. That'd be reasonable. Androgen deprivation therapy. These things do cognitively impair you. You were saying
they slow you. They cognitively impair you, they cause muscle wasting, and they cause falls. And look, he was Parkinsonian before this, right? He has that slow gait, the mask-like faces, the hypophonia. I always wondered if some of the cognitive problems were the result of medication for the Parkinsonism, because sometimes his motoric function was better, and I noticed his cognitive functioning then wasn't as good. So I wondered if that was part of the problem. So there are multiple things going on here. Could he also have dementia? Dementia gets worse with any medical conditions. We are still very much in the dark about what's going on here. But I'll tell you what, every journalist in the country should wake up this morning and think to themselves, oh my God, we have been played. I have been played. I've been gaslit. I've been lied to, and I played into it. And I need to really examine what I did, why that happened. Do not let it happen again.
They're not going to do that. Well, I think they were in on it. And when I say that, I think there are journalists that full well knew that Biden was ill. I think when you've got some, 45-year-old big-bellied plumber sitting in his living room with the clicker going, Biden's sick. And it's that obvious on TV. And when you see him talk, how could these journalists not be curious enough to ask any question? I mean, this is what a journalist is supposed to do. You make some calls, some doctors, you try and get some source and information and confirm what everybody is hypothesizing already. So
listen, Tim, mind you, when I did try to speak up back in the time, I was attacked. How dare you? He's sharp as a tack. He's got a photographic memory. You don't take care of him. You don't know. Look, I can look at a picture of a rash and say it's a rash and evaluate the rash. Same thing is true with certain neurological conditions. Same thing is true with prostate cancer, which I treat a lot. I suffer from as a patient. I'm on the Prostate Foundation board. I understand this illness. They're not giving us the whole story. And I can say that about any case, about anything that is described in this manner. Happens to be the president of the United States in this case. We have a right to know more than we do. It just seems to me. I would say that. For
prostate cancer, does the medication and treatment you described with the androgen deprivation or any other treatments cause impairment to such a degree you can't operate a motor vehicle?
Well, it can. When I was presented with my disease started progressing a little bit, I needed some extra treatment. I had a frank conversation with my urologist. I said, I don't want androgen deprivation therapy because a small percentage of men don't just get cognitive decline, they get frank dementia.
Wow.
And I'm somehow convinced I'd be one of those guys.
It's not worth it.
But it can be really serious. And yes, you can get to the point where not only can you not operate a car, you can't feed yourself.
Whoa. But let's say, so that's a small percentage though, you said, right?
Correct.
Are there any other like short-term treatments they provide, which maybe it's like, I don't know, I'm not a doctor, but I know that sometimes I go to the dentist, they say, hey, we're going to give you this pill. You can't drive your car for 8 hours. Are there any kind of medications along with the treatment that might be short-term that would have that effect?
Not like that, no. The only thing I can think of is, when you get metastatic disease to the bone, sometimes it's painful. And so they might be giving him some pain meds that could make him sort of impaired. But I didn't see any evidence of him suffering or being in pain or anything, which is also a little odd. All this is odd. But, again, we're trying to put the pieces together with very limited information.
The reason why I'm asking is because I think we've already established when you listen to the man speak, there's something wrong. And I'm trying to be academic in how I describe that. Yeah. And we know that a side effect of the medication and treatment he would receive for this disease could result in full-blown dementia.
More commonly, cognitive slowing, cognitive decline, the kind of things we were seeing here.
So let me ask you another question in your expertise then. Yeah. If someone entered into a contract while undergoing these treatments, would they have grounds to void a contract due to impairment?
Boy, you're way outside of my field. I would be surprised. As long as they can express volition and date and time and orientation. If you got the dementia, you would not be able to be in a contract. But with the cognitive slowing, I would say you'd be okay.
But with the audio that we've heard of Joe Biden, now the her tapes that got released, I don't know if you had a chance. Yep. Have you listened to that?
I've heard them. Yeah. It doesn't surprise me at all.
Well,
the one thing that was on display there that Alex Berenson pointed out that I thought he was absolutely correct on is he has something called anosognosia, which is with many psychiatric conditions and addiction and certain neurological conditions, there's a block in insight on what's happening to you. You don't perceive what's happening. And what happens sometimes in family systems where there's a patriarch that no one wants to confront, they support the denial. They don't want the poor guy, oh, don't bother him. Don't want him to feel impaired. Oh, no, he looks okay to me. He's looking good today. They support the dysfunction as opposed to pulling him aside and going, hey, we gotta do something here. Let's be a little more, let's be kinder to you, and let's do proper care as opposed to pretend nothing's happening.
So with those audio tapes, he clearly didn't know dates. Now, I'm sure if you ask him what today is, maybe, I don't know. He didn't know when he was vice president. He struggled to remember when his son died. He struggled to remember when Trump got elected. And of course, the reason I'm asking all these questions is the challenge we're going to see likely from, I would argue from the base, from voters, from journalists and commentators, is that Joe Biden was cognitively impaired due to his ailment. And that's going to call into question decisions he purportedly made. So with the pardons, for instance, you have the use of auto pen, which already people are arguing proves he didn't sign it, therefore it's void, but it's legally questionable. The next thing I think is going to come up, they're going to say, well, if he was getting these medical treatments and it had caused full-blown dementia, we don't know if these are sound presidential judgments, and this could open the door to legal challenges, which I expect.
So remember, he refused to take the Montreal Cognitive Inventory that Trump sails through every year. He refused to take it. So we have no objective data to really know his level of cognition. And by the way, they do have a viable defense on the auto pen, but because they're obfuscating so severely, I don't think they will bring it forth, which is, hey, guy had Parkinsonism. One of the features of Parkinsonism is you lose your ability to write and your signature doesn't look normal anymore. We had him use the auto pen, but he approved every single auto pen signature, and he just couldn't do it because of his Parkinsonism. But of course they won't say that. Of course they won't.
Did you hear there was an oncologist who went on MSNBC and he said he believes that Biden probably had this cancer when he entered the presidency?
It is not. It is a reasonable assessment. That is a reasonable thing. Again, we're working with incomplete information. Is it possible that he was diagnosed with metastatic disease at presentation? Possible, but less than 2% chance. Is it probable that he had it for 2 or 3 years? It got away. And what was the original treatment? Did he have radium implant? Did he have external beam radiation? And why did it get away from them? Or did it get away early? And was he put on androgen deprivation therapy and is it now progressing, which it does? It's a terminal illness. I don't know, but it's something like that. But it is not. I will tell you what it is not. It is not, hey, we did a digital rectal exam and we felt a nodule. Lo and behold, you have metastatic disease. No, did not happen. Guaranteed.
That's insane. There was that viral clip from 2022 where Biden said, I and so many others have cancer.
I saw that.
And the media's claim was he was talking about skin lesions.
Doesn't make sense, by the way. Why would he be talking about cancer? I mean, basal cell carcinoma and, maybe some localized squames. Everybody gets that who lives in the sun or spends time outdoors. You don't think of yourself as a cancer patient when you have basal cell carcinoma. Maybe if you had melanoma, but we need to know that too then, if that's in fact the case.
That's exactly what I was going to ask. He was telling a story about how oil slicks were on his windshield and the wiper's trying to wipe the oil away. And that's why, quote, I and so many other people have cancer. Is there a kind of cancer that's associated with petroleum chemicals? Is skin cancer?
Not skin cancer for sure. And it brings up an interesting question about food dyes. He should have gotten on that then, because those are petroleum products. And I want to say also, people are going to get all exercised about turbo cancers and vaccines and spike protein and whatnot. Well, look, we something is up. Patrick Soon-Shiong is going around talking about how the spike protein seems to knock out our natural killer cells, which are the sort of the final pathway of protection against cancers as they develop. If that is happening, we got to deal with this. But there's more to be revealed on that yet. I don't know that cancer is actually on the increase, but if it is, and these natural killer dropouts, much like AIDS causes a T cell dropout, this is another kind of T cell dropout. We need to get on that and get on it quick. And because people are so exercised around vaccines, you're not allowed to even ask these questions, which thankfully now that ice is melting a little bit. Yeah, especially.
And it's fascinating how they went after RFK Jr. as being an anti-vaxxer. When during the Trump campaign, I'm like, have you guys listened to RFK Jr.? He's not anti-vax at all.
No,
in fact, he's moderately pro-vaccine. He was he was critical of the process by which they were getting approved, specifically the COVID ones. One thing I want to bring up, Nancy Pelosi, I think a lot of people forgot this. Remember when she created that 25th Amendment committee? It was around the time of the election in 2020. She created this committee to invoke the 25th Amendment to remove a sitting president. And the first thing people said was, this is to remove Donald Trump if he wins. Then everyone kind of took a pause and said, wait a minute. No, this is for Joe Biden. I think when you have we'd call it the wisdom of the crowd, noticing something was wrong with Joe Biden.
Yeah.
I think we look at the actions of prominent Democrats like Pelosi. I think they were well aware that Biden was very sick and was going to need to be removed. But the question is, what could he have had at the time that warranted creating a committee to be able to remove him from the presidency? So if they discovered this prostate cancer in 2020, would that give you as a doctor, would you believe that maybe within a couple of years he may be demented and unable to do the job?
No, I would not. Unless he had at presentation back then, a Gleason 9 with Mets, or at least outside the capsule prostate cancer, then I would be worried that we would get to the point where he would need more aggressive treatments and then his cognition could be affected. But it's on the fence, right? The original presentation, if that was 4 years ago, as we say, people normally often die of something else before the prostate cancer gets you. You can't foresee that it's going to become aggressive necessarily. So again, I don't know. To me, it seems like the only time they got real about it was when he wanted to run again. That's when I think they knew that they couldn't go on, not just because of his cognition, because he had a terminal illness.
So the reason I ask is this would imply that there is another illness that we're only still guessing at. You said perhaps Parkinson's?
Well, we see, look, as I saw a physician on TV the other day said, look, if I showed a tape of Joe Biden to a medical student and he or she couldn't identify Parkinsonism, they would be remediated.
Wow.
It's obvious he has Parkinsonism. The question is, due to what? There's lots of causes of Parkinsonism, and his doctors know due to what. They have to. If they don't, that's where the kind of malpractice would come in. You didn't do the workup for an elderly man with Parkinsonism? Give me a break.
Well, so what is Parkinsonism?
Parkinsonism, again, are these features of motoric slowing, stiffness, festinating gait, mask-like faces, hypophonia. It's a certain region of the brainstem that sort of breaks down in terms of our fluidity of motor function. It's associated, if it's Parkinson's disease, it's associated with dementia. Sometimes dementias of various types have Parkinsonism as part of their presentation. And sometimes actually medication causes Parkinsonism. And sometimes it can even be just part of aging, just part of these sort of vascular aspects of aging. You can result with some Parkinsonism. But we should know that. We should know what that is. So again, each different situation has a different prognostic implication. And if you're also trying to treat somebody for prostate cancer at the same time, some of these conditions just get worse in elderly patients when they have another medical problem. Forget the treatment. Just having another medical problem can cause decompensation of all of these neurological conditions.
Is there a treatment for Parkinsonism symptoms? Is there?
Yes. And the treatments often cause cognitive changes. And I was watching over the last couple of years going, they give this guy a break. Maybe it's his Parkinson's treatment that's giving him the cognitive problem, but they won't come clean about any of it. And then they gaslight and then they attack for anybody who tries to make sense of things.
So then the reason I ask is, are the treatments for prostate cancer and Parkinsonism, are they counterindicated or like you?
They interact. The Parkinson, again, because it affects your muscle mass when you block your androgens, some of the features of the compensations for the Parkinsonism get worse, and so falls become very likely.
I had a cat. I'm not trying to be disrespectful or silly or anything, but I had a cat. We called him Mr. Bocus, and he had kidney failure. And he was young. He was only about 5. So we were upset. And we went to the vet and we said, what can we do for the kidneys? And they said, the medication for the kidneys can help. Unfortunately, he also has a bad heart. The medication for the kidneys will damage the heart. And the medication for the heart will damage the kidneys. There's nothing we can do. And so it was actually fairly sad because there was a workable treatment for either issue, but not together. And so that's why That's what I wonder with Joe Biden. Were they looking at a rock and a hard place where they're like, okay, he's got cancer, but if we treat this, it's going to cause problems on this side. If we treat that, it's going to cause problems on this side.
You're bringing up a really interesting point, because I'll tell you where the rubber hits the road on that. When he's developing progressive disease and they start talking about androgen deprivation, they start worrying the androgen deprivation will worsen his cognition. Maybe they waited a little too long on that.
Wow.
That would be a reasonable thing to have happened, and not the wrong thing to do either, by the way. He's leader of the free world. You want to make sure his cognition is as good as it can be, and you're noticing some problems. I could see where they could delay treatment a little bit, or that he could choose to delay treatment, or his family could choose to delay treatment, but it would not be smart.
So I think perhaps it does sound like there's a high probability that this guy's suffering Parkinsonism. He's age-related or otherwise, causing a decline in his cognitive state. And when
associated with a decline in cognition, it seems, or it's all due to androgen deprivation. Again, we know so little. If I were betting, I would say he's got age-related Parkinsonism with what's called minimal cognitive change, made worse by androgen deprivation therapy. That would be my guess.
I was wondering if maybe the possibility is, as you just mentioned, they delayed treatment because they said he's already in a bad state of mind. If we give him this treatment, he will be gone.
If there were a room of doctors trying to make that decision, I would guarantee you that should come up.
The scary thing is, it wasn't just the family. It wasn't just the administration. Members of the press, like you mentioned, attacked you when you question this stuff.
That's what I'm saying. I want those people. If we get nothing more than people to become journalists again, this would be a great success. That you've been played, you've been gaslit, and they rendered you, the press, delusional. And you have fed into those delusions by attacking people who are trying to uncover the truth. Forgive me. That is your job, and you should be doing it.
You've faced censorship quite a bit too in the past several years, I imagine.
Constantly.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
The
tides have turned, but my God, what we went through was just astonishing. And then the way my profession behaved during COVID, there were so many things that were astonishing. We need to look at this in an unblemished fashion, get to the truth, and make sure this does not happen again, or it will.
It will. Look at the big picture then. You had big tech social platforms censoring and covering up stories relentlessly.
At the bidding, though, of the administration. Remember, there were. We got to find out who was pulling those levers. What was that all about?
I think this is the biggest scandal in U.S. history. I think this whole thing is scandalous. I completely agree with you. There's scandal written all over this, and we've got to get to the truth. But this is a large component of it. But I think if you look at the whole picture of the past 5 years, you had big tech censorship, journalists in on the take, lying to cover up medical issues, censorship issues.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. It's a whole expose on a deep state that was crumbling and falling apart, but became apparent to so many people. It's all of it at once, covering everything up to protect themselves.
It's so. If you would describe this to me, and I had not lived through COVID and some of these other experiences of the last 5 years, I would call you delusional. I would say, no, come on, no way. But now it's apparent that this was some sort of, I don't know what to call it yet, because I'm not but certainly the propaganda, the gaslighting, the delusional, but it's all there. It's happened before in history, happened during the 20th century a number of times. I thought we got over that, but lo and behold, we're not. I guess it's in the human condition, certainly the modern human condition. And we need to really get serious about looking at what happened here. Tim, I have to go, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. All right. Right on. Well, where can people find you?
Good. Check out I have a show on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 2:00 on YouTube and Rumble and everywhere called Ask Dr. Drew, interviewing guys like Tim, talking about issues like this. I think your audience would really like it. And I want to come back and visit you guys in person. I miss you guys.
Anytime.
All right. I'll bring Corolla. I told you I want to bring Corolla out there to do that.
Oh, actually, you're in LA, right?
Yeah.
I'll be there tomorrow. Let's connect.
All right, do it.
All right, man. Thanks for joining us.
All right, thanks, Tim. Appreciate it.
Oh, amazing. That was very cool. And I didn't know that Dr. Drew would be joining us, so I'm very, very, very excited for that. That was very fun. We'll have to get to Dr. Stephen Quay the next time. We've been having technical difficulties today. I have no idea what's going on. The stream cut out in the beginning, but it's a huge, huge day for news. And the last question I was going to ask him, so I'll just throw it out there as we wrap up. And if you guys want to throw in any of these Rumble rants, I'm curious what you guys think as well, because it's a general question I had is, are we on the other side of this? Is Donald Trump in office the other side? I think there's a lot of people that are concerned that, Dan and Cash, I don't know who Dash is, they came out and said Epstein took his own life. There's a concern that we're not, that cover-ups are still going to be there. I trust Cash and Dan. I don't believe that they would withhold information from us or lie to us for personal gain, or I certainly don't think either of them are cowards. So I'm curious. With everything we're seeing, everything we've seen, Dr. Drew talking about the medical censorship, big tech censorship, the media lies and manipulations, the administration seeking to have people banned, removed. They smeared people. They ran fake operations against people in this country. I'm wondering if we've come out on the other side of this. I don't know. I'm curious what you guys think. I'll grab some of your chats. We are going to be throwing it to Russell. I believe Russell Brand will be up in just a second. So let me make sure that we have Russell's stream to bring up for you guys. How amazing that we're uncovering all of this stuff right now. It's just, why? Why are they now giving up these tapes, exposing Biden? Why are they now coming out admitting that he's sick? It's crazy. Skyline says, no wonder Joe got prostate cancer. I wouldn't be able to regularly use my hand either if I had seen Dr. Jill's Fashion Daily. Haha. Let's see. Someone's referring to RFK Jr. that he's 100% anti-vax, but Cuck Tim refuses to say it. Now, I think y'all are just putting on RFK what you hope he is. That there were a lot. This is the craziest thing. There are people who are anti-vax who wanted RFK to be. There are people who are very, very pro-vax in every fashion who are accusing RFK of being anti-vax because that's the if you criticize the COVID vaccines in any way, you're entirely anti-vax. And then there are anti-vax people who are mad that RFK Jr. the whole time was praising vaccines. And it's a crazy thing. RFK Jr. was obviously trying to maintain a moderate position. This is why it was obvious that he was saying what he was saying. And then the people who claim he's 100% anti-vax, the dude gets into office under Trump and he starts promoting the MMR vaccines. And people were like, wait, what's going on? And I'm like, did you ever listen to a word that he said during the campaign? He talked about this. It's not a secret. People do want to lie, though. My friends, we're going to send y'all to raid Russell Brand. Apologies for the, that is not the stream. That's the stream. Apologies for the technical difficulties and the confusion on the guest. But, we made it through. We made it through. And we'll confirm that raid for our friend Russell. I think he's calling this the biggest cover-up in modern political history. Indeed, it is. My friends, smash the like button. Share the show with everyone you know. As you heard, I was telling Dr. Drew, I'm going to be out of town for the next few days. We got a big project in the works, but don't worry. Libby will be hosting the morning show. Phil will be carrying IRL. I will have some segments up tomorrow, but Wednesday and Thursday, I might be back Thursday night for IRL. I'm not sure. But when you got to do the work, you got to do the work. And it's not always possible to do one thing 16 hours a day forever. So we've got some big stuff happen. I think you guys will be really excited. So I won't be here. But again, smash the like button. Follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Stay tuned. More segments throughout the day. We are back tonight for Timcast IRL. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be big with all the developments throughout the day. Make sure you go to rumble.com/TimcastIRL, 8 p.m. Eastern time. It's going to be massive. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see y'all then.